Welcome to ADHd20, the show that tries to find the intersection between ADHD
and TTRPGs.
On today's very special episode, we talk about procrastination. Why do we do it?
And can we fix it?
Spoiler alert, we do.
And we can.
Yes, we can. Can we?
I don't know.
You'll have to watch to find out. Hi, Matt.
Hi, Allison. How are you?
You know, it's funny. We have a topic today, and we're already doing it. And for that, I'm proud of us.
We're already doing it. Life in motion. Yes, I cannot wait. I cannot wait to see how this topic today is going to apply to the game Dungeons and Dragons or any TTRPG. But I think you have a plan.
I do indeed. But first, is it my turn to roll?
I think it's your turn to roll.
Look at these teeny tiny little dice. They're so little bitty. I love them. Little bitty dice, little bitty sounds. All right, yeah, you got the sheet ready to go?
I got the sheets.
How about number 11?
Ooh, fancy number 11 has not been chosen. When you were 8, what did you want to be when you grew up?
When I was 8, I wanted to be...
Specifically 8, not 7 or 9.
So that would have been somewhere in the third grade-ish. I was somewhere around there. I wanted to be a doll maker. I wanted to make dolls. And that was right around the time that I began my fascination with my local hometown meteorologist, James Spann. Shout out to all the Birminghamians watching this, and decided I wanted to be a meteorologist. So it was either doll maker or meteorologist, where that was that corridor of my life. And it's funny because I turned out to be neither artistic nor scientific and mathematic.
Well, you do have math rocks.
Math rocks. Nice. Nicely done, sir.
And you are artistic, of course. You are artistic.
But not in a physical manifestation of my...
Not necessarily using your hands.
What about you? When you were 8, what did 8-year-old Matthew want to do?
Number 1, I don't know. Number 2, let me think. Wow. I'm going to go with...
If you make it up, nobody will know.
It's so true. Here I am trying so hard to
we'll all believe
get
you.
into the mind of 8-year-old me. You know what? I'm going to say that, let's see, at around 8, I'm guessing that mom was still doing folk art frock tour and dad was doing, what he always did, building rifles. But I bet you I wanted to be an actor because I do remember a very big deal. This company came through Winston-Salem and performed at my school. Ooh. And they put on a children's show that was very movement heavy, very mimey and movement heavy. And I think that probably was a big deal for me.
Did you want to be a mime?
I did it. I probably did at one point. Yeah,
I could see little Matt wanting to be a mime.
Yeah,
and miming everything.
I spent a lot of time miming. Either that, or it could have also been I had a sort of maybe a half a year long psychosis where I had to write everything into the air. It was very weird. So maybe I wanted to be a scribe.
All right. Mm-hmm. Sorry, world, that our dreams were dashed and we do not sit in front of you as actor, scribe, pantomime Matt, and doll-making meteorologist Allison.
I tried actor. I gave it the old college try.
I did not try doll-making or meteorology.
It is not too late.
It's true.
Maybe meteorology.
How dare you?
Well, I'm just saying I don't know what it takes to be a weather person.
But I didn't want to be a weather girl Like I wanted to study.
Oh, damn.
I also wanted to be like on, the screen with like my big map behind me being like pressure from the Southwest or
so you
whatever.
Wanted to be both. You wanted to be both.
But I wanted to like not be fed the lines. I wanted to understand what I was talking about.
Wow. I get it. Aw.
Big dreams for little Allison.
Okay. So many dreams.
But otherwise, we can reveal our topic now. So I'll tell you how this topic came to me. So today I wanted to talk to you about procrastination. Why do we procrastinate?
Mm-hmm.
And this is why. So I'm already going to go ahead and tie this into D&D. Here we go.
Love it.
I don't know if you guys know this about me. I'm gonna drop a truth bomb, but I love Dungeons and Dragons. I love playing D&D. I love thinking about D&D. I love talking about D&D. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If this is striking any chords, ringing any bells. But I have found myself as a GM procrastinating the hell out of prep. And it's so interesting to me because this is something I love. This is something that I am genuinely excited about 99.9% of the time. I have a live in-person session today, starting in less than 5 hours. You want to guess how much prep work I've done for it?
Zip, zero, goose egg. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Why is that? Why? I'm genuinely curious why the second you put a due date on something, I would hypothesize if I didn't have dates on the calendar for the next times I am GMing, I would probably be building encounters as we speak. I would probably be saying, Matt, sorry, can't record ADHd20 today. I have some ideas, right? But instead, here we are.
I have many thoughts about this. I have many thoughts on this topic. Yeah. And some of it may be backed up with some very uncited science. Interesting. Great topic. Very important. And I think that those of you that are listening that don't have ADHD but do procrastinate, which is, I think, the entire living world, we are talking about something slightly different. We're not downplaying your version, your neurotypical version of procrastination, because everyone's aware of procrastination. There's billions of articles about it. And I think for the most part, these articles are written for a more neurotypical brain. But we're talking about what you just mentioned, which was we have no problem with the desire. We're not trying to get out of something. Our brains just don't. We just don't. So.
Well, and you've already touched on something I wanted to bring up on this very episode. I feel like as neurospicy people, we spend a lot of time trying to find ways to jam ourselves into a neurotypical world.
Yeah.
We try, and that's why we started this podcast, is to kind of bridge the gap between the neurodiverse and the neurotypicals so that we can all understand each other better, so that our neurotypical friends and family can say, okay, so they're not doing that to wound me.
Right.
That's just how their brain is wired, right? This is one topic I give nary a hoot nor a toot if, how do I put this nicely? Now that I've already said the phrase nary a hoot nor a toot. I'm not looking for hacks. I'm not looking for ways to fix this part of myself. This is something I am sending out a burst of flame, a firework, a flare. There's the word I'm looking for. Here's what you need to know, neurotypicals. I'm here to tell it like it is. I'm here for you to, I'm not saying we don't collaborate, but yeah, this isn't something we need to give up any space on, I think, fellow neurodivergents.
Right. And I'm going to probably mention my coach a lot this episode, because I've talked to her with her about this topic in great length. So there is some quote unquote good news. I'm just diving in. The good news is that this is something that is a part of an ADHD brain. this added level of procrastination that doesn't even make logical sense. It does not. It just doesn't. Because again, we're talking about, you can bribe some kids with blank and they will do what you want them to do. You can say, okay, honey, 5 minutes, or that might work if they have ADHD, but it's actually broken in our brains. That do part, motivation is not, that's the divergent part. That's one of the divergent parts of our brain. The motivation
switch
gene switch center, whatever you actually call it. I don't know, but maybe it is the amygdala. I don't actually know, but it is not always functioning in our brains. Deadlines can help, but also a problem that we have is we have now learned in life that, oh, well, there was all those times in college where I stayed up until 2, 3, 4, 8 in the morning and I got the job done. So
exactly.
You learn, and that's bad learned behavior as well. So or learned behavior period.
Yeah.
Again, it's like it wasn't enough motivation to logically think, intellectually say, oh, wow, I've got a week to do this. If I do a little bit every day, I will be done with a comfort and an ease, but that doesn't work always for us. But you're talking about, okay, but still, I want to do this. I would probably quit my job and do this full time, and I still can't force myself to always do it. So,
and we would wait until the last possible moment, despite the fact that we have a lovely Discord server full of great people and friends and loved ones throughout our lives saying, this would be a good topic. This would be a good topic. Matt and I are not going to come up with the topic and the outline until seconds before we hit record. It's just not going to happen. And I think that's what my tirade moments ago was about, that my best work truly, and neurotypicals do not believe this, and I am here to say my best work is done under the gun. It is done by way of pressure. I don't perform well without a deadline.
Yeah.
And even if I have the deadline and it's, this D&D session has been on my calendar for 6 weeks at this point.
Yeah, 6 weeks, yeah.
And again, I love it, but I have waited because I know that my best, and that was kind of one of the points I wanted to bring today, is history proves to us that we get it done. We get it done well,
right,
under that pressure, and where like the butting of head comes from is from the person or people in our lives saying, you should have done this earlier. Was this stress really worth it, Matt? You didn't have to feel this way, Allison. That causes me more stress than the am I going to get it done? And in some way, the thrill of finishing moments before a deadline is dopamining for me. To clap back to many, many episodes. It feels good to get it done, and then, so my pushback is always like, because people are like, why could you have got it done days ago? Well, if you needed it days ago, that should have been the deadline. If you gave me the deadline till Tuesday, don't expect it on Thursday before.
Right. So, absolutely.
I'm feisty on this subject today. I didn't actually mean to come in here guns blazing, but here we are.
But it's interesting. I mean, the dopamining thing is so true, because what happens when we are cramming before a whatever? We're taking a dopamine shower. We are just flooding ourselves, be it by, either coffee or just the fear or or stress or whatever it is. You're just like, okay, now I'm activated, right? And our brains need that Kickstarter, which is why Adderall and Vyvanse and Ritalin exist, because they're trying to play with, mess with, regulate the, those levels of dopamine that are so wonked. So, but that's the idea, is that it is a barbaric way to try to quote unquote fix our brains temporarily to kind of give us the dopamine that we're constantly searching for, that we can't regulate properly. And that's why there's also all these tricks with Pomodoro technique and just timers in general, and sitting down and like focusing on one thing or giving yourself a break. But the motivational part, that's the part that is extremely tricky as well. And I'm not going to be able to speak to that particularly scientific but my coach has said for sure, you just cannot count on our brains to be activated by the same things that other brains would. So in some ways, you're lucky that a deadline even works.
Yeah.
You're and a lot of times that will do it. Deadlines are good, but it may not always work. Sometimes you'll rebel.
So I didn't come into this with that, but what you just said made me think about what we were talking about on the Pocket Dimension Live last week, which is that for newcomers in Dungeons and Dragons, you had talked to Lindsay, and Lindsay had said to you, I want to be railroaded. It's too much. It's too much and I remember that feeling of overwhelm when I was a new player. Oh, this is all coming together so beautifully, like it always does. When I was a new player and I didn't know what was legal, what was possible, what I could do. I remember this feeling of overwhelm. And I remember watching you and Evan and Fitz. I really did just like drive by, drop that on you, didn't I?
Sometimes I just can't.
And I remember thinking, how do they know what to do? How do they know what to ask? Because you guys were like crawling all over whatever room or cavern or whatever and just asking all of these really great questions. And I was like, how do they know to go over to the bureau and open the drawers? How do they know to look out the window? How do they know to like stop and listen?
Yeah.
And now as a more veteran player, I know to just let my imagination crawl when my DM describes something to me and then just like impulsively go after it.
Yeah.
But new players don't know that, right? So we railroad them. We give them guardrails when they're starting out. We're very, prescriptive. We're very direct. We're very we don't give them a cavern. We give them a room with two things in it and, kind of lead them. Or we plant an NPC who will kind of tell them something we need them to know or do.
Can I give you a specific example?
Yes, please.
So I was just reading about this today. A fellow named Merrick. He's a blogger for years. He's been writing about modules and adventures, specifically D&D, but probably other ones. Merrick's musings. So Merrick was talking about this new buffed out campaign book. It's called Phandelver and Below, The Shattered Obelisk. And what it does is it takes the Lost Mine of Phandelver, which is, I think, the first 5e starter set adventure module.
It was my first D&D 5e starter. Oh my god.
And it is just revered by every reviewer as one of the best intros to the game and just modules, period. It's got, and I think it is absolutely speaking to what you said. It is very railroady. You meet at a tavern. Someone walks up to you and says, I have something for you to do. Yes. You go out, you have a cart. You go out into the woods. You come across horses, and then that's a goblin attack, right? And I think it's so nice for first players to have that. It's not a okay, your characters have all met. What do you want to do? Because that's not going to help anyone that doesn't know how to play the game. And I think all of the starter sets do that kind of thing. As much as railroading is supposed to be this thing you should never do as a game master. You should never you want your players to be like, yay, but I think at first it really is good. And for people with ADHD, it may be good all the time to have that focus. Okay, so I don't want to get too off topic, but to that point,
Do it.
do you find that if you are presented with fewer options, you have a much better chance to do what you're supposed to do, choose the thing that you're supposed to choose from, create, period? You do. Yeah, me too.
Oh my God. I mean, like all of the things we've ever talked about, analysis paralysis and decision fatigue is so freaking real. And it, again, that is not a market we are trying to corner. That is human, right? To, I don't know what to do. But yes, the fewer barriers that you can have to overcome to making a decision. It's why, I mean, we talk about context switching a lot, right? The less that we have to move our gears to make some sort of decision, the higher rate of success typically that we're going to have. Yeah. We have long said this, right? We I think maybe even as recently as last episode, we get lost in the middle. The beginning is one thing, the end is something else. It's the middle ground that we go, whoo. And I, you know, when people ask me for like, how do I deal with this person in my life with ADHD? The first thing that I'm always going to say is sit down with them and explain the steps. Yeah.
I'm glad that you brought up the middle, because that's another thing that my coach is always talking about is the inability for our brains to see the middle. Beginning can often be super easy. The ending, hell yeah. It's already over as far as I'm concerned. What's the next thing? But the middle is almost impossible for us to visualize the actual process of doing it. And we have an incredibly difficult time breaking down the tasks, because in our brain, it's like, all right, I need to finish this essay. I'm just going to start writing. No, that's not. It's like you really
outline your resources, and
you have to, like, she gives herself points for sitting down in the morning.
Yeah.
Points for getting the paper out or opening up Ulysses or whatever, the app. Points for putting her hands on the keyboard, man. And it could be that ridiculous, and it sounds ridiculous, but we have a much, much higher rate of success if we can break things down in that way.
Yes.
And again, if you add timers to that, where you say, all right, 5 minutes, that's it. Yeah. If at the end of 5 minutes, I don't want to keep going, you're cool, man. Get out of there. But that never happens. You always work more. You get into the flow. The hyper focus starts to kick in, and then you're okay. Yeah. But we don't, because we have almost phobia of the middle. It's just so, it's like a chasm to us. It's like a enormous, endless drop to,
okay. Yeah. So now I can connect the dots with the research that I did in the moments before we started recording. Yeah. You have illuminated the path, Matt, with these words. Really good job. So I read a great article, New York Times article published back in 2019. We can share the link. That, you know, the first thing that we've already said is that procrastination is not a time management issue. It is an emotional regulation one. We all know that to be true by now, I hope. In the year of our Lord's 2023, please say that you know that procrastination is not a time management issue. Stop giving me time management hacks. Right. None of us want to hear that, because then, so already we're triggering RSD. It's because we, like, the emotional response that we have to things, to where neurotypical people are looking at us going, why are you being so emotional over this? And we're going, how are you not being, you have insulted the core of my character by suggesting I can't get this done in time. And I've proven to you time and time again, I always get it done, just not in the way you want me to get it done. Right. And that's the kicker. So in the article, it goes on to say basically that our brains are wired to prioritize short-term needs over long-term ones. This is where the amygdala that you were starting to reference earlier comes in, because our amygdala is our threat detector. So once it perceives threats, it starts and like sirens are going off, and we go into shutdown mode as a self-preservation technique. I think as humankind, consider future versions of ourselves someone else entirely. That is a different problem.
Right.
So when we make a problem for like tomorrow, Allison, and tomorrow, Matt, that is a different human than the one standing here in front today. And a couple episodes back, I actually shared that one of my personal hacks to getting stuff done and to being more productive has been to picture and embody future Allison. What can I do today that's going to make me tomorrow 10% happier?
Yep.
And in this article, the science goes to back that up, that the breakdown, what perpetuates this cycle is the lack of emotional regulation, the getting emotional over the thing.
Yeah.
And so the article says that self-compassion is the number one way out of the cycle.
Wow.
To like hold yourself in a high enough regard to say, I see you, I hear you, I feel you. You're okay. You know?
The future Allison. You're like, I want future Allison to be okay.
To be happy.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something that I started doing without any scientific urging. And so I was kind of pleased to read this little article and be like, I was on the right path of like self-care comes first. And I think we all tend to be the most productive when we're feeling good, when you get into that hyper focus and you like your work feels good. So you're proud of it. So you want to do more and you're creating and you're in a creative spin and like all these things like that game sees game, good attracts good, light makes light. And like all of that stuff starts going. But it's when you get into those darker hollows, when you begin to lack that self-compassion, that it just spins out. And I think that's when, one of the things that I loved about having Evan on, let's continue picking on Evan on this episode, man.
Evan, my brother. If you haven't heard that episode, please
go listen. My favorite part about the episode is, Matt and Evan are two people I talk to all the time. Mm-hmm. And I learned so much about Evan that day. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that Evan said on the episode that really stuck with me is that he recognized years and years ago that guilting us, that making us feel worse about an already bad situation was never gonna, so he employs empathy in those moments instead of him being frustrated and saying, why can't Matt just do this? Why isn't Allison just listening to me right now? He stops and he's like, what's going on with Matt? What's happening in Allison's life that may, and he does this to me all the time now. If he has feedback for me and he is genuinely worried that it's going to trigger an RSD fueled response, he will literally now say, Allison, I don't want to trigger your RSD.
Wow, that's great.
But right now you're interrupting me a lot and I need you to listen to the words coming out of my mouth instead of, like that, he's right. And just by him noting, I care about you. I'm trying to help you in this moment and you're fighting me and you're making it hard, does cause me to like break down my walls, and put my excuses aside and shut the hell up and listen to him.
Right.
And so I think that's, when we talk about the tension between neurotypicals and neurodivergent, guilt is never, ever, ever. Maybe that works. Does guilt work for anybody? Be honest. I don't think it does. But that making us feel bad about ourselves, pointing out something that we already know is a trigger point. Right. Why can't you ever, that's what I was saying, as we were diving into this topic, why do you always wait to the last minute? Why is this always a fight? I think both parts are to blame. I don't necessarily want to use it. You know what I mean? Like we both kind of do it to each other where again, my response is always going to be, but I get it done. Right. Right. Yeah, but I wanted it sooner. Okay, then sooner should have been the deadline.
The deadline, right. I know. Okay, so how can we've mentioned a couple of ways to, when we have to work with other people, how can we optimize that? How can we, pass the olive branch, the laurel tree?
Well, so now I think we're getting into a topic we've also addressed about like making things
remembering
but making things more
phrases.
inclusive, right?
Yeah.
What are ways that we can make sure that neurodivergent people feel, and you had made a great point, Matt, about just saying like, hey, I know I'm neurospicy and I know I'm impulsive and I know that I tend to interrupt and get excited and I know I do it and it's okay. Like if I'm doing that, to say like, like y'all know with me, it's okay to be like, Allison, you're at a 10 volume wise and I need you more like a 7. It's okay to say that to me. I know I'm loud and I know when I get excited, my volume only goes up. And sometimes I just need somebody, and I know you're not attacking me when you do that.
Right.
Right. We have established that.
Yeah.
So I think it's the same thing here, right? Where if you are beginning work on something, I now know to say, if your drop dead deadline, finished product, done, ready to go, is Friday, we need to back that train out of the station. When do you need to see a first look? Because if you tell me Friday, I only hear Friday. And so I'm going to work and deliver it on Friday. But if you were hoping to see a first look 2 weeks before, and now we're getting into this middle part, right? Now we're saying, instead of, because neurotypicals are just thinking the deadline is October 1st. And they think that's good enough to say, I need this October 1st. Right. And I guess they think most people,
obviously the first look is a week before that. And second look is half a week. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So that's something that I tend to push back on. If the deadline is October 1st, when do you expect an outline? All right. If the outline is due on September 10th, when do you expect to see a first draft? September 15th. Now we're getting somewhere. Okay. So if the outline's due on September 10th, the first draft is due on September 15th. And just working together to create a project plan, a mind map, whatever we need to call it in any given industry. So we're all clear.
Yes. I appreciate that we are the quote unquote divergent ones, whatever that means. But what can we do also to make the Evans of the world feel a little more relaxed when he sees the potential train crash in his brain? He understands it's going to be okay, maybe, but man, he's freaking out because of it.
Yeah.
What can we do? I think we're doing some of it. I think, I think we are trying to speak, even though it may be boring to us, once a week or two, go through every project and say, where are we here? Where are we there? Where are we here? Where are we there? He also knows that we can set goals or actions and they won't be completed, but at least we're touching on it, which means, which brings to me the other part of this, which of course is time blindness and the constancy and our wait a minute, I just worked on that last week. No, you didn't, fool. That was a month ago. Yes. But in my brain, it was last week. I just
had hands on that.
Come on, man. I just didn't know. Time is a soup.
The weird soup.
It's a weird ass soup that it just does not mean as much to us either. So it does actually literally help to see the project come up and go, oh, right. Okay. That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah. Okay, great. Yes.
So I'll tie this back into D&D and adventuring now. We are adventurers. We have assembled our party. We have been handed, you have to go find out why the trade route is broken and we're not getting any of our goods anymore, right? That's our decree. We know that we are going somewhere 100 miles due north of where we are right now. We would not, as an adventuring party, just start walking.
Right.
We wouldn't do that, right? We would, I'm guessing that's why we roll survival checks out in the wilderness. We would consult our map and make sure that we are never far off course. We don't do that in life or business. We just, I'm going here. And then we just start marching and we don't take those, because it's so much easier to course correct when you're 5 miles off course. But what happens because of our time blindness is we get 50 miles off course and now we have to double back and we've wasted a week.
Yep.
So that is such an ADHD tax. So it's why we have stand up every morning. The micro check-ins that make sure that if we leaned off path, we can quickly yank back in a day and not lose a week.
Right.
in the process. So note to selves, note to your adventuring party, find micro ways to course correct constantly. That way, if you do get distracted or procrastinate it or forget to do it because it fell off, it fell out of your sight.
Or it's in there. It's completely in our brain. It's just that we just don't have the same amount of, constancy. Yeah. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're doing something wrong. It just means it could be very different from the way that you are. Yeah. So we've given a few ideas, and I know we're winding down, but that does remind me of another one, both that the coach recommends and that I'm not always great at. But the times that I am almost always ready for the next session, at the very least, am ready to set up and go and prep, is the second that we stop playing on a Sunday, I immediately start putting notes down and even maybe building the next session.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fresh in my brain. It's right there. I'm in hyperfocus.
Yeah.
I'm ready to go.
I think that you just came up with the ultimate hack in life and in D&D. I think that is brilliant, Matt. Oh my God, you did it. To exactly your point of everything we've talked about, the messy middle and like getting stuck in the weeds and things like that. If you can do whatever you can do in life and in D&D to end the session moving in a specific direction, don't end in a nebulous, unformed way.
Yes.
Do that with your workday. So you've long said this, Matt, where like if you can come in the morning and know what you need to pick up and start working on, you are like 99.9% more likely to get that thing done than if you have to sit down at your computer and be like, well, I could do this or I could, it's the decision fatigue all over again. Same thing. If you end as a DM, if you end a session knowing they are going in this direction, I know what to build. I know what NPCs I need. I know what boons I'm going to give. That is a beautiful way. Oh my God, Matt!
Well, and that's not me. Please, that is from my coach again. That is she is trying so hard to get me to do that, and I have certain successes. I have a number of failures, and she's always trying to get me to have a shutdown day thing for that very, very reason. And even if you can't do that, if you're working on something, as far as context switching goes, if you're working on something and you have to stop for whatever reason, you have a meeting or you have to go somewhere or it's the end of the day, just jot down what you're doing at that moment.
Yes.
So that you can go back on anything, a piece of paper, your task. Just make a little note saying, I left this in this state, and you're going to go back so much more confidently. The middle is going to be torn away from it a little bit. Yeah, I know. This is
so good. Yes. And I do. I have better days when, to exactly that point, I write on a Post-it note where I left off, because otherwise I spend the first 20 minutes backtracking and being and feeling stuck
or redoing. I mean, literally redoing, and then, because you can't even remember where the file is, which I know again sounds insane to a lot of people, but it's real. All right.
That's it. We did it.
Perfect example, Allison, of how we prove to ourselves time and time again that just winging it can create beauty. So good job. It was necessary to talk about. Sometimes we do have to just let it go. Though our Discord friends have such great ideas that we will get to.
We will get to. I wanted to. I will fall on the sword for this one. The meta-ness of procrastinating the really good ideas so we could talk about why we procrastinate was too much. It was too tempting, and I just had to grab that nugget and pull at that thread. And
that's perfect.
Well, Matthew.
Yes, Allison.
Thank you for being on my podcast.
Thank you for being on my podcast.
I guess we'll live to record another day because we have so many great topics flooding us.
We will. We will live to record one more day.
One more day. One day more. One more day to revolution. We will nip it in the bud.
Thank you for listening and being a part of our ADHD20 family. If you're looking for more, we'd love to see you in our public Discord server. Look for the link in our show notes and come join the chatter about all things TTRPG and ADHD. But also TV, music, really pretty much anything on our minds.
We also have a Patreon where you can get access to bonus content and outtakes, be the first to hear new episodes, join us for live streamed recording sessions, and even play Dungeons and Dragons with us and our friends.
The best way you can help us, though, is just to share this podcast with people you think will like it.
Thank you for being a pal to us as people, to ADHD20 the podcast, and to the greater Bivens Brothers Creative Commonwealth of Nerds.